The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Illya Friedman.
Welcome to episode 34 of the Cinematography podcast.
Yay.
Here we are.
Hey.
I am Ben Rock.
And I'm Illya Friedman.
And we're very excited to bring a really kick-ass interview to you. Illya, tell us about the interview because you conducted it.
That's right. This interview is with a very talented director named Lije Sarki. And Lije he's multi-talented hyphenate. He's done a lot of different things. Producer and in this movie, he is the director and producer. And
you had a little something to do with this movie, right?
I did. I came in as an executive producer, and
So you just walked around on set and told everybody what they were doing was wrong, and like you said, why isn't there better food at craft service and stuff? Well,
no,
what'd you do?
That's my joke about you. So, but no,
it's not a joke. It's a documentary.
Anyway, no, this is a fantastic movie. Lije is going to tell everyone about it, like in the first few seconds of the interview. So I don't want to,
Well, can you tell us the title of the movie?
The title of the movie is called Concrete Kids, and if you want to go see it, you can watch it right now on Amazon Prime. If you've got Amazon Prime, Concrete Kids, and it's a fun movie. It's all told in one night. It's sort of an after hours with pre-teen skateboarders, and it's exciting. It's got a little bit of everything in it.
All right. Well, here we go. It is your interview with Lije Sarki.
The Cinematography podcast interview.
Lije Sarki, thank you so much for coming on the Cinematography podcast.
Thanks for having me, Illya. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. Hey, you just had a movie come out.
I did, yeah.
Tell our listeners a little bit about Concrete Kids.
Concrete Kids, somebody that watched it, actually somebody at the Orchard that watched it that called it Goonies on skateboards. So I've kind of rolled with that ever since.
That sounds like a fair assessment. Yeah,
it's a fun adventure, one night, two kids basically traverse Los Angeles on skateboards, and one has a mission he's trying to accomplish, and he bribes the other one to join him, not really telling them the real reason, and they go off and they bomb hills and ride trains and buses and run from crazy people and
how old are these
kids?
Get
Knife fights and no, they're 9.
Wow.
So 2 9-year-olds.
You and I first met, I think, a little more than 3 years ago now. You gave me the script, and it was one of the best things I'd ever read. So I really got excited about it. Talk a little bit about the process from that point. Like, how do you go from script stage into production in a relatively short period of time?
The reason that I think we could move fast with this one was because I didn't really want a lot of help. So we wanted to do it. Like, it wasn't even going to be a scripted movie. It started off with like this artistic montage of moments of these two young kids trying to get across a city at night and just having these like different street corners and streets and just stuff that I felt like I used to do when I was a kid. And I was going to do this like art piece about it, and then this script ended up happening through like continuous ideas of, well, maybe let's try this and we'll see if this works. And the script turned out all right, and we were happy with it. And the only holdup was finding the right kids and finding a little bit of cash, just a little bit, because we needed I needed to pay some people to help me. But we didn't want. I wanted a really small crew, and just to keep it real intimate and kind of do this as freestyle as we could.
So when you say small crew, that could be 100 people, that could be 30 people, that could be 5 people. Now this is a narrative feature film. What was your crew like?
I had a DP and I had a sound mixer. And I had 2 producers that acted as
production assistants.
That acted as production assistants, basically. I mean, one of them was kind of responsible for the kids to make sure I didn't kill them and they didn't kill me. They couldn't kill me, but that I didn't kill them and that they were fed. And then the other one kind of helped me navigate different locations and kind of the city itself, of like stopping a car when we needed to stop a car and some of that kind of stuff. And then we had one parent that was very supportive. A couple kind of came in here and there, but I want to say one, Miles's dad, Jules, who was very integral in this, because he brought the boys up and brought them back home every night and stuck around a lot too. But that was it. We had no support for any of the departments. I had an art person that came on and helped with some of the interior stuff that we had a couple days. She set up before we got there, and then it would be ready to go, and we shot. But really, it was only like a 1, 2, 3, 4 person crew with a parent and a teacher that spent a lot of time sleeping in a car.
All right, so basically you could count the entire crew on one hand many times, and on two hands maybe the rest of the time. Now, this movie doesn't look like it was made by 5 people rolling around LA. It looks like $1 million. It looks like millions were spent on it. It has extremely high production value, and for me, that was another big reason that I was really interested in what you were doing, is because the way that you were describing doing this project is the way I feel now only really possible with the latest sort of modern technology. Tell me about your vision for the movie and if you felt like you achieved it.
I think I was a little inspired by, Sean Baker and Tangerine, and I knew he had a small crew doing that. And I'm always a natural light kind of guy. So what can we see at night? And well, it's kind of hard to see at night. And when we started playing around with cameras, the Panasonic Vericam LT, Todd Bell showed me a clip or something on Vimeo, and what you could see at night was crazy. We tested it, and we shot a little bit by my house just down by the Venice Pier, and it was pretty wild, and I'm not super technical when it comes to lighting, like I came up making movies from the ground, so like I know a little bit about everything, but I'm not like super technical. So I trust the guys that know what they're doing, and they're like, yeah, man, we can just do this and use the streets. And then Duran came on, who I'd made a short film with before, and he was really confident in that camera and what he could do out there. And we knew that we could just use what was out there to light this movie because of the power of the camera, especially. But also you need a guy that knows what he's doing behind the lens. So
100%, yeah, 100%. You need to have someone who knows the tools, who knows what they're doing and how to make it happen. Do you feel like now that it's all done and it's out, did you get what you were going for? You're happy with it?
Yeah, I'm stoked on it. I mean, I've made all kinds of movies. Just shot one that was several $1 million to make, and I've made a bunch of them that were under $500,000. And what we did with this one is amazing. Like what it looks like, and how good it is, and how good the kids were, and how good all the actors were that came and showed up and played parts. I'm stoked on it. I mean, of course I had something in my head before we shot it. That did it turn out like that? No, but it never does. I'm really happy. I think it looks really good. I'd put it up there.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, no need to be modest. It looks like $1 million. Yeah. It looks fantastic. Now, casting was, of course, really, really crucial for the leads in this project. Tell us a little bit about what that hunt was like. I know it wasn't easy.
No, that took a while. That took, I had actually had a couple kids that I liked a lot that I basically was going to work with, and through rehearsals, we just all kind of agreed that it wasn't going to work. These kids were supposed to be, or at least one of them was supposed to be from the rougher side of the neighborhood, and I love working with people that aren't actors, because if you can get them to be themselves on camera, you get the best authentic performances ever, and kids especially, they don't really know how to act that haven't acted. They'll just kind of be themselves. But the closest I got to what I wrote wasn't necessarily showing up and learning their lines like I needed them to. So Heidi Lemon, who's a Venice woman, who's rad, who like I got hooked up with through another friend of mine. She helped me she told me about a couple boys that she knew from down south, like one in Huntington Beach and one in Long Beach, that, 100 tries later, I met these kids, and one at a time actually, and had them do this a couple scenes together, and they were pretty good. I ended up flopping one to the other role, but they showed up. They were all about it. They were stoked. They were like, I'll be in a movie, but they learned that one of them's, they're both very smart. One of them could learn lines really easily. The other one was so passionate about it and works like skaters, man. They'll sit and try a trick for days till they land it. So they're going to learn lines till they get it, and they're going to do scenes till they need to, and we're going to be out there, and there's no quitting. It's all, there's a mentality that goes with skateboarding that kind of transcends into a lot of stuff if you let it. So young skaters to play skaters was the only way to go with this.
You're talking as a skater yourself, of course, too. So for you, I remember early conversations. You told me how the skating had to be authentic. The skating had to be authentic, even more to you than maybe the acting had to be authentic. But the skating had, like, you were like, people are going to watch this and they're going to tell immediately if we're faked out the skating, and there's no faking in the skating. It's all legit through the whole thing.
Yeah, and I mean, imagine how hard it would be to put like stunt skaters in there and have it look like it was the same kid. It'd just be impossible. And you lose me every time I watch something that's like, even if a guy holds his board wrong, you're like, they screwed that one up. I feel like as a skateboarder, and skateboarders I know, it's a tough audience, and if you do it wrong, and I hope I did it right. I've talked to some guys that, that apparently think it's rad and that are into it, but you never know, and I don't want to assume I got it right. I'm okay with how I did it, and that's a big deal because I'm super, super picky, but you never know how everybody's going to react. But that, I think the industry, and I want to speak for it as a whole, it's very particular on how you represent skateboarding, and if you screw it up, you'll know it, and you'll lose them real quick, and
they won't keep it to themselves. They'll tell you.
They won't keep it to themselves. Like I made this short film called Belong that ended up getting a lot of presence. The Barracks put it up and Transworld put it up, and at some point, Louis Elliott, who's in the short, he showed me this movie on his phone one day. He's like, he was so worried about what I was going to do because I hadn't made anything before, and I was like, trust me, man, I'm not going to make this look bad. It's just going to be cool. It's going to be authentic and whatever. It's like not going to cheese it out. And he showed me this movie of Hard Flip was the name of the movie, and it was like, oh my God, no, I'm not making anything like this, dude. Trust me, it's not. But yeah, they don't want to be in something that's going to wind up questionable. So I mean, like I said, I don't want to assume I did it right. It's for everybody else to say, but
I think you did it right. You got.
But you're not a skater.
I'm not a skater, not at all. So
you can't say that. But somebody will say.
I'm the poser on the outside, telling you that.
I wonder how many skaters listen to your podcast.
Well, we sold a bunch of those Kodak decks, so yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe a few. We're almost sold out now. Yeah. Okay, well, here's what I really appreciate about skate culture, because I think from our generation, I believe we're both Generation X here. I think I've got a couple extra years on you, though, but we're kind of, to me, feel like the last generation where like the worst thing you could possibly be is a sellout. And skater culture, to me, despite all the big money and notoriety that's come into that, there's still an ethos of like, don't be a sellout. I think that permeates skate culture. Do you disagree, or do you think I think that skaters are, it's about the trick. It's about the love of doing it. It's about the, having fun. It's about, or do you think it's all about commerce now?
Oh, I don't even know, man. I think I'm pretty far out of it at this point. I just
don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think I have an opinion on any of that. I'm out of the business of it. I know what I like, and I still get out there, and rarely in the streets. I'm usually at the parks, and falling hurts more these days, but it's still a thing that I do a lot, and a lot of my friends, we share that together. So it's
all right. So, well, let's talk about how this movie might inform then, like, your future work, because I know you just did another movie. You just produced a movie that was at South by, and I assume that you had a lot more money, a lot more crew. It wasn't produced the same way as this sort of rough around the edges, ragged sort of run around the street narrative film like Concrete Kids. Would you make another movie like this again? Was all the blood, sweat, and tears worth the final result to you, or do you say, hell no, I only want to do it the other way? I want to do it where I have all the creature comforts. What's your feeling?
No, it's I loved what we did, and I totally want to do it again. And I wrote a movie with a partner of mine who we wrote it together. that I kind of want to make similarly to what we did with Concrete Kids. You know, I think I need to step it up just a couple more people, but it still would stay really, really small. And, it's not skateboarding anything at all. But it's like another adventure and young people. And I have a thing for stuff that I write and direct. It's like young people doing extraordinary things. So everything, I keep writing these stories that are adventure stories and like overcoming stuff or like little superhero-esque. And it's just, I don't know why I keep doing not the same thing, but it's like a different version of what I, they say, write what you know or something. I don't know. Whatever I've experienced or wanted to experience or didn't get to experience. So little versions of that. But as a producer, I've done, much bigger stuff and I'll still do probably bigger stuff. And it's a different game because there I'm helping somebody else be really great or, a team be as great. Producing is very selfless. So that's a hard thing to be sometimes, but I've learned over time to really I love it, because it's zero about me. It's about everybody else. And directing I don't think it's necessarily about me, but it's like you're so in it that, you're creatively responsible for the outcome. And
you got to have the hand on the wheel.
Yeah. And you're producing, you're kind of like covering everyone's ass that has their hand on the wheel, like you just said, trying to just catch everything and be a little bit of support for the whole thing, and two different jobs. But like for some reason as a director, I really like the intimacy of doing stuff small, but also no one's ever given me $10 million to go make something. I'm sure but there's something about like me having direct contact with the guys I'm working with or the actors and being able to just turn around to the DP and say, let's do this and go so quick, that when there's these layers of communication and to get shit done, it's just sometimes it's so excruciatingly painful that I'm like, God,
dying 1,000 deaths,
man. It's too much, But when you need to do big stuff, you got to have the right people involved and talent involved to make that stuff happen. So
sure, absolutely. Of course, if you're talking about safety too, if you're doing that sort of thing, but smaller, intimate stories which don't have a lot of stunts or explosions or gunfire and that sort of thing, you can get away with a lot less. You can get away with it and tell a great story. So it's different muscles you're exercising when you're directing versus producing. Tell me about the directing process for you. A lot of directors, I would put them into kind of two different camps. You've got very visual directors. They spend a lot of time Video Village. And I know for your movie, for Concrete Kids, Video Village was a little wireless monitor that you had basically on you the whole time. There wasn't like a big formal Video Village. It was like off to the side of the street and, how much range can we get? And then
wherever I was holding it.
That's right.
That's where it was.
That was Video Village. So, but for other directors, it's not about the visuals. It's not about working with the camera. It's about the relationship with the actors, and it's about getting a certain performance out of the actors. It's about making the actors feel safe with you, that you're guiding them to a place. What kind of director would you say that you are? Would you feel more like a visual director or more like an actor's director, or is this question bullshit? Is it, do you break the mold? What kind of director are you?
I started I was an actor before any of this stuff, and I don't know if I was ever very good at it, but I didn't do a lot of work to get good at it. And so I think where it comes, for me, it's like before you start shooting something, you kind of try to figure out what it's going to look like. You work with your DP, you look at other stuff, you say, I want to do this, I want to look like this, or something like this, or a version of that. You do a little test, and then once you start shooting the movie, like it's not out of your hands, but like it's a machine that's set up to do what we planned, right? So at that point, you just need to make sure, for me, I need to make sure what's going on inside the frame is believable. I think if there's a number one thing I pay attention to, it's authenticity of the performance. And do I believe it's real, or is somebody faking it? And if they're faking it, then we do it again. And that's like the number one thing for me. Like, I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of somebody, I'm air quoting, acting. That's what I really rely on. Because if you screw up the other stuff, you can still get away with somebody on screen, like performing authentically or not performing. And it turns out all right. Like, it doesn't have to look the best. It needs to sound pretty good, you know, but as long as you got a scene with people doing real stuff, then then you'll make it out all right, and the story's good, then I think you'd be all right. But yeah, it's all about the performance or the authenticity of it for me. So I work really hard, and like with the boys in Concrete Kids, we rehearsed a lot. We rehearsed a ton just so they could learn it, and then when it was time to be out there, forget that they learned it, and just it would be second nature. So just do the scene in what we did, but have it feel fresh. And but other times you hire actors that are pros, and you don't have to do much with them. You tweak a little bit here and there, but they usually show up and give you something that's really good anyway.
The night I spent out with the team on Concrete Kids, we were in MacArthur Park. And I was going to say, you can't get much more real and authentic than that evening in MacArthur Park, because it was like, it was a little sketchy. So
sketchy. That place is gnarly. The cops came by, they rolled through the grass in MacArthur Park, and we had a permit that was just for sidewalks, right? We had no permits for anything that we were doing. But I guess we did, because we had like street permits, sidewalk permits. You put sticks on the sidewalk, but 9-year-old boy, they were 10 when we shot. One was 10, one was 11. And the cops did not say anything once the entire movie about what we were shooting. They were only worried about our safety. They drove through MacArthur Park and it's like, what are you guys doing? You need to be careful. Like, you should not be out here this late.
I appreciate the cops not wanting to get in the way of the production, but just want to tell us, like, hey, look, there's crazies out here. You don't want to get yourself in trouble.
That place is crazy. And then we were getting like B-roll on the side, in the corner up there down the street, which I forget the cross street at the east side of MacArthur Park. And it's like the spookiest dead man walking. Dude, it's crazy.
Yeah, MacArthur Park, late at night. There was. I will tell you the other thing that made me feel a little bit like, wow, where exactly are we? Where are we right now? There was a lot of people out. It was not just like us. It was not us and like maybe one stray person. There must have been 100 people in the park that night. So, at least.
Yeah. It's weird. I don't know what happens down there at night. And it's funny, like, I think normally if I was down there, I would have been scared or like a little freaked out or like, we need to get out of here. But we were so busy every night because we did 17 nights, but it was summertime. So it didn't get dark till 9 o'clock, dark enough to shoot.
Yeah.
And the kids legally had to be done by midnight.
Yeah.
So 3 hours to shoot a full day worth of stuff. We shot 3 hours a night for 17 days, which is like 1/4 of the time to shoot a regular movie. So I was just constant. All right, what are we doing next? What are we doing next? What are we doing next? I had no time to even worry about safety. Thank God. That's what my producers were there for.
That's right. And let's give a shout out to the producers. You had a couple of great producers. People I met and have become friends with. I mean, tell us about Frankie. Tell us about Pierce. Tell us about
Yeah, Frankie's awesome. She's a good friend. I've known her for a long time, and she came on and she was so sweet, and the boys loved her, and they loved her so much. Like I said earlier, they started to not like me as much because I was off their ass to get like, let's go, come on, quit fucking around, because all they did,
I remember the swear
their job was to get to be friendly, and to eventually become friends in this movie, right? But they were friends within 2 days, and all they did when they got in the car was like mess with each other and like punch each other and kick each other. So in between takes, they'd be hitting each other, and I'd be like, you guys, I'm gonna kill you if you don't chill. And then Pierce, we had to separate them, so one would go with Pierce and one would go with Frankie at one point. And Pierce I knew from Pierce Craven's. He was an EP on this movie I did called This Isn't Funny that I produced, which we made for not much more than we did Concrete Kids for. It's on Showtime right now, actually.
Oh, right on.
It's had its run. It was on Netflix for a bit and some other stuff, but really proud of it. It was a cool little rom-com kind of thing. But I got to know Pierce. Then Ian, who wasn't there, was another producer. And then you, Illya, I was one of the producers.
Yeah,
so.
I've really been downplaying in this interview here, not once tooting my own horn, but I was not the hands-on producer like the way that Frankie was, or even Pierce being out there on set all the time. I was the executive producer who stood in the background and helped you guys as best I could from my limited schedule and ability and time and everything else. So
yeah, but he gave us the equipment that we were able to shoot this movie with.
Yeah, that's only a little part of it, though.
It's a huge part for this. This is a huge part for this movie.
It's the painter. It's not the paintbrush. Yeah. Although this paintbrush is pretty cool. Okay, so talk about the music. Talk about the soundtrack for this, because it's got a great soundtrack. How did all that come together?
Yeah, music was a lot of work. I don't say that with like any exhaustive characteristics. It's just you have to when we have no money, it's like nothing. There's a lot of songs. I wrote letters to emails and calls, and like I was trying to get Far Side songs, and I was trying to get all this stuff. And we got a lot of all the music in there we got for, I don't want to say free because nothing's free, but they were able to.
They were friendly.
They were friendly. They were very, very friendly. And, we were able to promise later when the movie makes millions of dollars that they would get a piece. But I think they liked the story. And I always pitched it like, look, this is a bunch of guys and girls getting together to make something that we all believe in. And that's just small. We're just trying to have some fun out here. Do you want to be part of it? And, that Vampire Weekend song, it's crazy how we ended up getting that. And, I guess you'd be surprised if you don't ask.
That's right. You gotta ask.
You gotta ask, and then a lot of the music we couldn't get, so it's like, how do we do this? What do we do? And then I had two amazing composers, Dorian and Fernando, and Dorian was like this violinist, Juilliard trained killer dude that I met probably while I was shooting, just before I was shooting. And Fernando is friends with the editor Pete, who's my buddy also, obviously. And Fernando was great with beats and remixes and all this stuff. So those guys worked together on the score itself. And then we got this hip hop dude, Open Mike Eagle, to record some lyrics for us. So Fernando made some beats, Mike recorded lyrics, and then our end song, which is also in the movie at some point too. Emily Kokel from, I think it's Kokel, but I don't know if I'm saying it right, but she's from the band Warpaint. She's a singer, and she wrote some also really, really great lyrics that went on the same song. And between the three of them, made 3 tracks for us to use in the movie that kind of replaced some of these big artists. I mean, these are big artists, but these old school.
Sure.
I just couldn't get my hands on it that were like from my, 90s growing up childhood that I had in the movie as temp music and whatever. But they work so well, and it's so cool. And
they do. They really play fantastic. So Lige, pre-production you make the movie, production you make the movie, post-production you make the movie. And the thing that I think a lot of filmmakers forget about, they just think that someone else is going to take care of it and it's going to be a smooth sailing for them, is distribution. And this movie definitely had a couple of bumps in the road for distribution. It'd been done for a while. It looked like it got a deal and was going to go out, and then that didn't happen, and now it's got a new deal. Talk a little bit about the trials, tribulations, the heartache, the joy of the distribution process of this movie.
I don't know if there's a lot of heartache or a lot of, we made this movie small. So recoup is small, right? There were some options for homes for it. I just wanted the best one to where I could get my investors some money back and also get the most amount of people to be able to see it. And yeah, you're right. We had a deal, and then that fell through, and that's probably all I'm going to say about that.
No, you don't have to go into more than that, except for that.
But The Orchard came on, and we had been talking to them earlier on, and somebody from their action sports side of things took a real liking to it. Danny over there, and he's real passionate about it, and it. I think as a distributor, because I've done all these indie, not all of these, but I've done a bunch of different ways of doing it, and none of them. We've gone with somebody that we think was going to be great, and then you talk to them for a couple months, and then they're gone, and it's, it just falls off, and it's sad because these films are also very hard. Most of these films, these low budget movies, are really hard to recoup. They're really hard to get seen. They're really hard to get placement. They're unless you get a deal with Netflix, and Netflix isn't buying movies anymore. They were 5 years ago, but they're making their own stuff. They don't want to buy Concrete Kids. We don't think. They still might, It's not closed there. They haven't passed. In the Hulu, maybe, but if you don't get a deal from one of these big streamers, right, then what's left? You're going up against the other 1,000 movies that are made this year, if not more, that are going on iTunes and Google Play and Amazon. And that's where this movie is right now. You can go out and get it. But The Orchard, we went through this action sports side of things. So we're getting, I think, a unique avenue into it. Instead of just going in with a bunch of narrative and being in that, we're in with like all the skate docs and the snowboard docs and like, look, we have this skate narrative that's this, Goonies on skateboards thing. And it just feels good there because they care about it. They're a good team. And I feel like we have somewhat of a unique avenue into the system. So we'll see how it plays out. On May 1st, we're scheduled to be on Amazon Prime for the 100 million Amazon Prime subscribers in the country to watch for free if they use their Amazon Video. So that'll be really cool. If not, one of these other things that happens before that. So we'll just have to kind of stay tuned. But there's some stuff in play that's exciting, and I don't know who else I'd rather be with. They're really good over there, and we're happy with where we went. But I shot this movie in summer of 2016, right?
Yeah, and it is currently spring of 2019.
Right. Yeah. So 3 years later this summer. But let me tell you, we could have had it out a year ago.
Sure. But you got to do the right deal. Look, mid 90s came out, Skate Kitchen came out. These other people are aware of skateboarding again, and somebody making a movie that has some skateboarding in it. And this isn't a skate movie as much as it's an adventure movie that's kind of rooted in skateboarding, So we'll see. Timing's everything. Timing is absolutely everything. And you never know. Lightning can strike and lightning cannot. So, but all you can do is the best you can do and put it out there and just keep plugging away.
The only thing I'll say about doing a movie small like this is that means me is responsible for all of this, all the deliverables, everything. So I'm exporting, all of that stuff along the way I have to do because there's nobody else to do it and there's nobody paying for it. So that's the only thing that, if I could go back to what we were talking about earlier, I do like doing this, but I don't want to do this part again just because it's hard, man. It takes up a lot of time and there's other stuff I want to do. So,
this is not the creative part. This is the getting it done part. But, and it's interesting because I do talk about this just recently in another interview. It's very much like being an entrepreneur. You need someone who can work for free. Guess what? That's you. If you're running a business, but that business is making this movie, and you need to get all the creative stuff done, all the technical stuff done, all the business stuff done, and then you actually have to send it out into the world. And if you don't have a lot of other people with you and they're not getting paid, guess what? You're doing the labor. You're making that happen. But kudos and props for you too for getting it out. And it's got to also look really good to other people out there when they're looking to take a chance on someone who, not only did this guy get it done, he did like a lot of that work himself. Like, you did a ton of that work, not taking anything away from the other people on your team, but you really did. You did it all. You did a ton of stuff, tons of stuff.
I mean, it's good to know how to do it all too, like,
I think it's vital.
If you can deliver a movie on your own and you can shoot a movie on your own, you really don't have to have anybody else. If I was confident as a DP, then it'd be a different story and I really could do it my own. And there's a lot of guys I work with on small, doc stuff that can do that, and I admire them because they can shoot, edit, all of it, deliver it. I'm not there, but I'm comfortable with, like, at least this, the post and delivering and knowing, Premiere and all that stuff is easy to do all that stuff now. You don't have to, there's not delivering the movie to the Orchard. I gave them one file, and the sound team, the sound team, I didn't say them. They were in Baltimore and they did this thing for nothing. Those are my guys at Studio Unknown. They're amazing. And they had done a bunch of movies that I've worked on, and they came on this just as, friendly support and believed in it as well. So that was another post part. And the colorist, Asa Fox, who did this for nothing, who I found on Mandy.com. I was like, I'm going to look for somebody that's just in between and wants to color a feature for fun. And there was one there. Like, you can find these people if you look.
Talent is hard to find sometimes. So you're very lucky too that you found such talented people. And I know when you say nothing, it's never really nothing. I know nothing is figurative, not literal. So all these people will be remunerated in some way. So, but it's the fact that they're willing to take the journey, the fact that they're willing to do the sacrifice and not have the big payday up front is what's, it's the magic and the family and the love that goes into the filmmaking process. And I think that actually for a lot of people who have achieved a certain level of success, they might miss that camaraderie. I think that's how you can actually get really talented people who have big credits under their belt or decent credits or a history under the belt, but they don't have the camaraderie of like, yeah, we're going to will this into existence from just the sheer sweat equity that we're all throwing into it. And that's what Concrete Kids, at least seems to me. It seems like something that you willed from nothing, from whole cloth. Here it is. And you got a bunch of other people to believe in what you're doing. And you got them to all to paddle the boat in the same direction. And then voila, here is this thing now 3 years later, which is incredible. So
yeah, I mean, I hope it's to do with, I think it has to be to do with the project, because it's not me. They're not like, oh yeah, Lige, we love you so much, we're gonna come do all that. It's the whole.
Well, you're the cheerleader though.
Yeah.
You're the number one, the number one recruiter. So
try to make cool stuff that people want to help with, and that's.
Yeah, cool stuff helps for sure.
Yeah.
So Lige, what's next on your plate? I know you produced another movie. I know you're writing some stuff. Where can people see you next? What are you doing?
Man, I keep stocking the file cabinet, not the file cabinet, but the shelves with stuff. I've got a show I wrote with my partner Ari that's set up over at Sony. I'm working with Will Arnett's company on. That's really cool.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So we're in the process of trying to get that thing to a place to go out and pitch, which we're really close. And
does it have a title you can say?
Crooks.
Crooks. All right.
Yeah. It's a fun one. It's fun. It's way fun.
Nice.
And I've got another movie and a TV show that I'm producing with the directors of Peanut Butter Falcon. Got a few movies that I wrote that are just out in the atmosphere that are we'll see what's happening. I sent one off the other day that I hadn't touched for like a year and a half, and there's a couple doc projects I've got that I've shot some proof of concepts for that we're currently pitching. So there's all kinds of different stuff that's in the works.
Nice.
I got 2 movies that I'm producing as well. One just came out in the trades like a few weeks ago.
Fantastic.
A good cast attached.
Well, you're busy.
I have to be, because you can't. I learned when I used to have one thing going on, you bother a lot of people trying to get that one thing done.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
Now it's like you have enough stuff in there in the works that hopefully something happens, and hopefully they don't all happen at the same time, and just keep adding to the pile.
Well, Lige, where can people find you if they want to look you up or follow you on the Instagrams or you on the Facebooks? Do you do any of that sort of thing? Do you have a company website, Nut Bucket, nothing? Yeah, you got something?
I have a website. It's just got some work at nutbucketfilms.com. I have a new company that I started called 1993. That doesn't really have a website yet. I have my own Instagram, but it's like a personal Instagram. There's nothing too exciting on it. I don't Twitter. I have a Twitter, but I don't tweet. Facebook, I'm rarely on anymore. I've tried to really get out of the whole.
Good on you. Really, legitimately, good on you. I'll tell you, there's a lot of filmmakers out there who I think spend all their time doing social media and not actually making the movie. So, but good on you for actually doing the movie part and saying, I don't need all this other stuff necessarily. Is there
if you wanna watch my baby grow, you can go on my Instagram, but that's about it. No, there's a couple. There's some movie.
All right. Well, I'll put your Instagram in the show notes. So if anyone wants to track you down and follow you that way.
I just made a movie with my baby that I just showed you that you guys should, if you do have time to check anything out, check that out. That's a little like 3 minute short film. It's hilarious.
I would easily rank it on something on a Funny or Die. It's really hysterical. I laughed at least 5 times out loud.
It's called Baby Blue Valentine. It's on YouTube.
All right. Well, we will put a link for that in the show notes. And Lige, is there an official page for the movie at the Orchard's website or anything yet? Do you know if there's anything where people can find out?
I don't know if there is a link that the iTunes buy link or whatever.
You can watch the trailer on iTunes.
Yeah. Trailer's out. The trailer's on YouTube through the Orchard and Echo Boom Sports, which is their action sports. It's on that as well. So there's a couple trailers. There's one or two like sneak peek clips that they put out too on YouTube. Yeah, it's a lot of that stuff out there.
So search Concrete Kids on YouTube, on iTunes, Google Concrete Kids, and you're going to come up and see the trailer, maybe clips and some extra stuff.
Yeah, it's all out there.
Fantastic. Hey, Lige, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been really a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, so that was Lige. Lige, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you. I can't wait to check out the movie.
You should totally go watch the movie now.
I will, because streaming is, as I have established, is the only way to watch movies with a young baby.
So Ben, it's time to pay the bills.
All right. I love paying the bills.
Paying the bills.
Let me put my little green hat on.
Oh, all right. So we got to thank Ari, our wonderful sponsor for this program.
Thank you, Ari. You're the best.
And we need to talk about what is a major new release for Arri, which is the new Alexa Mini. It is the new Alexa Mini LF.
I've heard about this.
Yes, it's a large format mini camera. So the camera is small, but the sensor inside is big. It's bigger than full frame 35.
Really?
And it looks amazing. In fact, the Alexa Mini is a very popular camera. A lot of the, there was a Best Picture nominee this year that was shot on that camera. And in fact, Arri basically swept a lot of the Oscar movies this year.
As you'd expect.
They're used all over the place, at least as far as the narrative stuff.
As always, every cameraman I've ever talked to, that's the camera they want to work with is an Arri camera.
Arri's got an incredible reputation. They make really great products, and probably the most anticipated new camera this year is the Alexa Mini LF. And I know there are producers out there who are going to say, give me the new Alexa Mini, and this is what they're going to get. So it has the same imaging sensor as their already current flagship camera, which is just the Alexa LF, but it's in a newer, smaller form factor. It doesn't have exactly the same frame rates, but it has exactly the same imaging, and it's an incredible camera. It looks.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but what resolution does it record at?
It records at 4K.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's got a larger than Super 35 sensor, and there is a UHD mode that is close to Super 35. It's a little bit bigger, but yeah, they have 4K. It's Netflix approved at the gate, so I think a lot of Netflix programs will use the Alexa Mini LF, and we already have a bunch of clients at Hot Rod who are either adding one of these cameras to their rental house or to their owner-operator package, or they're getting rid of maybe their older camera that they've been using in order to move into this sort of large format feature.
Were people swarming all over that thing at NAB?
They were. It was a mob, and they also had a special event here in Burbank at their office, which was insanely popular, super crowded. Hundreds and hundreds of people showed up for that. And as that camera starts to trickle out into the world in the second half of this year, I think you'll hear a lot more buzz about it.
Sweet.
And now, short ends.
All right, so Ben, it is now time to do our short ends. So do you have an obsession this week? What do you?
I have one that I think people are going to love.
Okay, what's that?
I know I love it. It is another podcast, so you have to stop listening to our podcast and listen to theirs. It's called...
Hey, is that a good idea? You want to send people to another podcast?
It's called 80s All Over.
What?
It's these two film critics, and full disclosure, one of them is a pretty good friend of mine, Scott Weinberg.
Does he say totally all the time, or radical?
Totally.
Or tubular?
Tubular. They use tubular.
Nice.
They say that a lot. So it's two film critics, Scott Weinberg and Drew McWeeny, and they're both like really brilliant, articulate, smart, awesome film critics, and they are going through every movie that was released in the 1980s, starting January of 1980. And every episode is just 1 month of the 80s. They are up now to I think it's like March or April of 1985.
Ooh!
And you can listen to it in almost any order. And as a child of the 80s myself, sometimes I'll be like, I wonder if they did Your Hunter from the Future. I wonder if they did
Krull.
Yeah, I don't know if they've gotten to Krull. I don't know if they've gotten up to the month of Krull yet, but they probably have.
Wow, all right. That was probably 84, 85, 86 in that range.
I want to say it was 86.
Okay.
But like sometimes, I'll be like, I wonder if they saw Wolf in or something, and I'll look it up on IMDb and see what month it is, and without fail, every time I've looked one up, they've hit that movie, because they'll hit like all the major movies, all the movies that are like Oscar nominated, all the prestige movies or big movies, but then they also hit all the random little cult movies and horror movies and basically anything that was released in movie theaters in the 1980s. And they give you a lot of great detail and background. And this is maybe too nerdy and deep, but we were talking about this a little bit earlier. And I had sort of mentioned this when we had Leonard Maltin on here, that I kind of have a fascination with like what modern culture looks like when you're like, in this case, 30 years down the road and looking back at it. So like the 80s, we all spoke the same language that we spoke in the 80s, and we have a lot in common, but then you start realizing how different our whole culture is from the 80s, and just the different values we have, what movies got made, what had currency, and I feel like if you go back even, to the 70s, it's even weirder their movies in the 70s, like Saturday Night Fever, that were like giant popular movies then and would have picket lines around the block today if they released them in theaters.
So if I was to say like Footloose, Outsiders, Risky Business, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Escape from New York, The Octagon, Flash Gordon.
They've done all of them.
They've done all of them. They're all part of that.
Yeah. And they've done, and it's not just like liked it, didn't like it. Like they've done their research, and so they'll go into some detail. I mean, like there's in some episodes they're cramming in 25 reviews.
Whoa.
I don't know how these guys have enough time to do it. I don't know how they track all these movies down, because a lot of them are, not in print in any way. I'm sure they're finding old VHSs or something. Anyway, it's just it's not just kind of a trip down memory lane for someone from the who grew up in the 80s like I did, but it's also, I think, a really interesting anthropological deep dive into what pop culture was, again, recently enough that most of us lived, through it, or a lot of people lived through it and are still around. But like, when they talk about it, the trends in what Hollywood was making or what was finding real purchase with an audience, some of them are, like they'll talk about Porky's or something, and you're like, again, that movie there would be picket lines around every movie theater if you released Porky's in theaters today. Like I think Drew McWeeny literally called that movie a sex crime. Well, it is. It really is.
And it was just good, clean fun back then.
I remember my parents loved it, but it's just very interesting because some movies hold up brilliantly and some movies really, really don't. And also, like, you forget about certain celebrities. Like, Arnold Schwarzenegger was maybe more of like a big celebrity in the mid to late 80s.
Sure.
But, people who were of different acting qualities then would probably become stars today. But then you realize we're doing the same thing with other people today.
Yeah, think about the cast of like Police Academy. Think about like Bobcat Goldthwait. Think about like all of
don't bag on Bobcat.
I'm not at all. I love Bobcat.
I think he's the highlight of the Police Academy.
Yes, me too. And I would love to have him on the podcast. So like, but I'm just saying, like, that is like a time. That's like a timestamp. That like that particular Police Academy and Bobcat. It was like, was it Steve Guttenberg? It was a very
Michael Winslow.
Yeah, it was very. Particular sort of like slightly over the top, slightly fractured sort of like universe that those movies take place in. And I feel like they were indicative of a whole subgenre of like movie almost at that time, sort of like screwball comedy 1980s style.
There is a very specific kind of screwball comedy, and also like sex comedies.
Sure.
And yeah, it's
Goonies.
Yeah. You kind of go down that rabbit hole. I always kind of look at it and go like, what, because in a way the movies that are selling and that are big, but obviously they're covering movies that also bombed. But like the movies that reflect the decade are sort of a mirror being held up by the culture to itself. So the movies are sort of what culture was saying about itself, what it valued and what it stood for at the time. And so, when that's like Top Gun, what does that mean?
Sure.
It's not a value judgment. Is Top Gun good or is Top Gun bad? It's more just like what is the cultural value that's being held up that is actually resonating with people enough so they go see it. Also, and they do talk about cinematography and cinematographers a lot on the show.
Really?
And so, yeah, because there's some amazing cinematography. Obviously, it's a whole decade. So,
Sure.
they're hitting the best and the worst of everything. And they'll, I just listened to the one that had the Dark Crystal. I think it's the newest episode.
Oh, yeah.
That had the Dark Crystal, and they were kind of talking at great length about kind of the cinematography in that and how amazing that movie looks, And I think it means a lot as someone who obviously loves cinematography enough to be doing this with you all these 27 years.
It's only been 5.
It's like one episode per year. No, but as someone who's fascinated with that, it's always interesting to kind of hear or to revisit those movies and be like, what was the cinematography in Smokey and the Bandit 2 like, or a good movie?
And you're a nice dig on Smokey and the Bandit too there.
Take that, Smokey and the Bandit. But it's very interesting, because I also think that in the 80s, cinema reached a kind of a different milestone of maturity that it's constantly growing and growing and growing, and still to this day is. But it's like certain things became very, economically feasible, certain kinds of special effects. And obviously certain techniques in filmmaking and cinematography were prevalent then that you wouldn't look at the 70s and see those kinds of techniques in a 70s movie necessarily.
Yeah, it definitely. Well, there was new film stocks. There was the ability to actually shoot much faster film stocks in lower light.
And I mean, you have kind of like Spielberg was obviously already around, but you have like Spielberg really coming into his own in the 80s.
For sure.
E.T. Yeah, I mean, it's not a dig on any of his 70s work, because his 70s work is amazing, but but he dominates the 80s.
It's true. He really does. And one might argue that his films of the 70s may have had more of a, I don't know, maybe a less spit and polish gloss that maybe would be more welcome compared to like his later work. But yeah, that's the 80s is when he owned the box office. It was a Spielberg movie, and people showed up in droves. So,
and I have yet to sign up for their Patreon, but I intend to. And on their Patreon, they get like real 80s filmmakers and actors and stuff, and they do interviews that are all bonus features that Patreon people get. But honestly, just check out the podcast. You can kind of do it in any order. Like, find a movie that you like from the 80s, and again, at this point, they're only up to 1985. So find a movie you like between 1980 and 1985 and listen to that whole month and kind of put it all in context. Like, just you'll pick up weird little factoids. Like one of my favorites is like Gremlins and Ghostbusters were released the same day.
Yeah. Yeah, and movies were in the theater a lot longer, and I remember seeing Ghostbusters before I saw Gremlins, but did see them both in the theater.
Also, movies got re-released, so like Raiders of the Lost Ark would be in the theater, and then they'd bring it back like 2 years later.
Oh yeah, that was fun. They'd have revivals, and then suddenly like they'd get a whole new box office draw.
It's because it's
people missed it, and there wasn't another way to see it.
Yeah, there was. I mean, even if there was home video, it was a vastly inferior way to see it. It wasn't like today where Netflix is. Watching a movie on Netflix, quality-wise, is going to be an amazing experience for you. It's different than going to a theater, but it's you're not looking at a terrible-looking picture. VHS was a terrible-looking picture.
Often was horrible. Yeah, absolutely. And that was the whole reason that other standard def but higher definition formats came into being, like Laserdisc and eventually DVD. So I mean, it's because VHS was
and Blu-ray.
Blu-ray, yes, but Blu-ray now high definition. So
yes.
So anyway, my short end this week is everything to do with what's shaping the landscape of original programming in this original era of streaming services. So I guess the way to condense this into a soundbite as to what I'm going to write in the description of the show is who's a player and who's not.
Well, and that'll change between the time we record this and, next week when you release it.
Yeah, exactly. But perhaps the biggest news was YouTube getting out of original programming. Deadline reported earlier this month that 4 original scripted shows were canceled, and they also canceled all of their pitch meetings.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they were going to be a big player. Of course, YouTube owned by Google, and this all kind of came right on the heels of Apple saying that they're getting into original programming. And they had an announcement, I think it was like $9 billion or some huge amount of money that they were going to spend on original programming. And I think Google, parent company of YouTube, was like, maybe we should sit this out. Maybe we should not go head to head with that.
They must know what kind of a product they have in YouTube, which like the product of YouTube is the container. And, it wasn't until YouTube became a thing that I started hearing people talk about, like, be a content creator. It's like, oh, I'm making the filling in your wonderful website. Like, before that, it was like, you're making the film. You're a filmmaker. No. Now you're a content person. And,
because there's a lot of stuff that's not film. There's a lot of stuff that's not.
Well, and it's not, it's entertaining, like YouTubers, unboxing videos and stuff like that. Or PewDiePie or there's a bunch of those things. And it's like, they're obviously entertaining people, and I'm not here to crap on anyone who likes watching.
No, not at all. It's different strokes for different folks.
But it's also like I guess you could just say it's an unconventional entertainment. I mean, like, I'm sure that those unboxing videos are outrageously popular. I
know we released one last week.
I have only once in my life ever watched an unboxing video, and it's because I was buying a product. I was buying a sit-stand desk. which I really only sit at.
Well, we're actually we're doing unboxing videos that are only 60 seconds long.
Yeah.
So we've decided to do the whole thing like in time lapse, so you get to see what's inside of it without actually having to watch.
But it's like, people who like buy Disney collectibles and they just, kind of fetishize. But like those things are very popular, and it's like, cool. Who would have known that watching somebody else play a video game was going to be, a huge generator of revenue? Cool.
Twitch. Those are the people who know. Those people know.
I mean, and again, like, I'm not here to crap on any of that, but I remember I had like a weird crisis moment where a friend of mine worked at Maker Studios years ago.
Sure.
And I had been hired by a company that no longer exists, so I won't name them.
No longer a player.
No longer a player, but they were sort of doing what Maker did, where they were like aggregating YouTube, influencer types.
They call it the multi-channel network, MCN.
Yeah. So they were one of those, and I was hired to do camera for a Q&A of these people, and I watched their videos. This is the mistake: is I watched their videos.
Yeah, you should never have done that.
And I was like, oh my god, like how many millions of people are watching these? And
millions and millions,
and they were garbage. And I called my friend who worked at Maker, and I'm like, "Is this the future of filmmaking? Because if it is, I need to go learn how to sell insurance or something." And yeah, he was like, "No." He's like, "This is just think of it more like stand-up comedy. Like these guys would have been like at their local, laugh hut, doing amateur night, but this is how they can do it now."
Yeah, well, now it's also a combination of reality television with the sort of vlogging that goes on with all of this, and and not taking anything away, YouTube, what it does on a really great level is to inform and to educate, although this is something
and to radicalize.
Oh my God, let's not talk about radicalization. Let's leave that one little part out of here. But I will tell you what.
You started by looking at a video of butterflies and you ended on Nazis. How did that happen?
And I will also say that like their advertising algorithm, not so great. I'll tell you that like my children clicked on some video the other day, something that was totally appropriate for them, but then they saw an advertisement for like malt liquor or for whiskey, or I don't remember what it was, but I was like, yeah, that's right, advertising to the the under 12-year-old category. So anyway, but but getting back to the point of who's a player and who's not, well, Apple's getting into this space in a really big way. I know that some of these different sort of apps, or what they call now the OTT, the over-the-top networks, which are...
That's what Shudder is, and I just did a podcast for them, but Shudder is mostly... like they're a horror network, like Netflix is a movie network, and they do horror and thriller, and they're also branching out and doing original stuff like their Creepshow series and the Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs and stuff like that.
So what might be happening in the future is stuff that looks more like an Apple TV or a PlayStation, or even just your TV that you buy at Best Buy or at Costco or wherever you bring home, and you turn it on. Like now here, instead of having channels, you've got like 20 different apps, 30 different apps. Each one of those apps might have a different interface, might have a different thing.
Somebody needs to figure out how to aggregate that and make it just look like a channel guide, though, because it really is kind of frustrating to navigate all the different apps.
TiVo is actually doing that right now. TiVo is actually aggregating streaming content and broadcast content, cable content, and they have a unified search. You can search in one place, and it searches all those things.
That's really good, because like we had the Amazon Fire Stick for a while, and that one would always prefer to look on Amazon.
Of course, that was their whole game.
And then we switched to Roku, and Roku is, I think, they're all good. You can do whatever you want in all of them, but I think I prefer Roku a little bit. But the thing about the streaming services, though, like the ground is rather uneven. Obviously Apple is going to be able to weather the storm, but like
they're $1 trillion company.
But like I had a pitch meeting maybe a year and a half ago at a company called Fullscreen, which I think is still around, but they were also one of those multi-channel networks. And then on top of that, they were getting into the original content business, and they had a feature that they had acquired, and they had me come in and pitch it. And I think I can safely say I pitched the fuck out of it, and they were really excited.
Did they buy it in the room?
No, well, it was their script. So,
okay.
So they had to decide if I was going to direct it.
Gotcha.
And they called my agent, and they were very excited about the meeting they had with me. And then like 2 weeks later, the whole division of Fullscreen that made original content was folded. And as you're talking about YouTube, I didn't get a job. I probably shouldn't talk about jobs I didn't get, but a few years ago, I was interviewed to direct a movie for a giant YouTube channel called Smosh, and they made a movie called Ghostmates, and it was made for YouTube Red, and
which now is going to be a music service.
So it's like, I wonder what happens to that, though. It's like, a whole crew of people worked on that. I mean, they made the movie. I think Tim Robbins' son directed it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I didn't subscribe to YouTube Red, so I haven't seen it. But I did read the script. And obviously, because I pitched to direct it. But I'm like, what then happens to all this content that they created? Do they just delete it? Do they put it on Amazon? Do they put it on YouTube for free? Like, what do they do?
Yeah, and I can't answer that question because I don't know where it went, but I will tell you, if you look at sort of the landscape of who's shaping up to be players, I would not have thought that CBS All Access was really going to be a thing, but they have two wildly successful, and I say wildly successful because there seems to be buzz and people talking about it, and I hear people talk about it with regularity. The Star Trek series, they reboot, and now the Twilight Zone reboot with Jordan Peele, and let me tell you, like, I don't...
Twilight Zone was what got me over the edge. Like, I subscribed to it as soon as Twilight Zone was on the offering. Like, I mean, I like Star Trek, but I can't not have the new Twilight Zone.
I feel like, with the success of Get Out and Us now, what perfect timing and perfect place to put Jordan Peele in a new Twilight Zone series, and it's really great from what I've seen so far. And so CBS player, some of these new OTT services, and if that's not in your vernacular, it will be soon. OTT, I'm hearing left and right.
It stands for over the top.
Over the top, which meaning that it didn't require some other network or service to bring it to you. Although there is some of that happening too, with like Stars folding into like Hulu. So yeah, through Hulu you can subscribe to Stars.
You can also do it through Amazon.
Amazon, there are all these different aggregations, and I'm already hearing about people saying like, well, if this service doesn't work out that well, we expect this other service to acquire them or acquire their library or acquire their content. So that deep library of like 20th Century Fox is probably very valuable. For
Criterion is doing their own channel now.
And I will tell you, I am enjoying the hell out of Canopy. Who would have thought the public library...
Canopy's the best, right?
Yeah, but Canopy's incredible.
I love Canopy.
Hearts Beat Loud, which I couldn't find anywhere, is on Canopy. And it's a great movie from a year ago. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
I have not seen that one. Yeah. And, also kind of to what I was saying about Shudder. So Shudder is owned by AMC Networks. And I don't really know what the bigger business plan is here. But I can easily see, like AMC owns, I believe they own IFC and Sundance Now and Lifetime. And those are all kind of niche networks. So I can easily see them saying like, okay, so we're going to take the lessons we learned on Shudder, which is like, we're going to go after the horror and genre audience. So, it's like, define it somewhat broadly. It's like horror and thrillers and even movies like True Romance that aren't really horror movies, but appeal to that audience. We're going to take that and we could apply that to the Lifetime audience. And to me, in the case of Shudder, it's brilliant curation. So I feel like you get someone who's really in that audience who knows how to program to curate a whole network. And I feel like it's not that you can't lose, but I feel like there's fewer hoops to make people jump through now. Like, people of pretty much any age, if they have a television that was made in the last 5 years, they can probably do this without that much extra learning.
No, or extra expense.
Yeah.
So it's, and I will tell you that if you want to get creative and start your own network, that is going to be coming to you soon too. So everyone can have their own network and app and thing. It's a matter of time.
Enjoy my network.
Exactly. So Ben, I think that just about does it for this episode. Where can people find you?
You can find me hanging out with baby all day long, making sure that he eats food and doesn't choke.
Yeah, that's you got a 1-year-old now. So
I do. He's about to turn 1 on May the 4th.
Wow.
May the 4th be with him.
Wow, and Star Wars Day.
Yes. I hope he likes Star Wars because he better. But people can find me at benrockonline.com. I'm also on the Twitter at Neptune Salad. And pretty much anywhere else you can find people. If you look for me on Facebook, there I am. Look for me on Instagram, there I am.
You can find me at Hot Rod Cameras. You can find me on also the typical places. And hey, I want to just throw out a quick reminder to our listeners or people who are listening to this who have not subscribed. Please subscribe. definitely do that. Leave us a review if you liked it.
Subscription costs you nothing, man. Just do it.
Yeah, you could hit the button. You could write a review. You could just give us like a certain number of stars. You know, we have like 44 5-star reviews, and I saw we finally got someone who didn't like us. They left us like a 1-star review. So thankfully that 1-star review person, there wasn't enough of those, so we still have 5 stars.
You're not really like you're not a viable thing until somebody hates you.
Yeah,
so
that's right. We finally have broken through and got our
someone
first,
hates us.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank our hater.
Yes, and now that we've got a hater, we're legit. That's what it is. We've achieved legitimacy. So find me at Hot Rod Cameras. Ben, let's thank our wonderful editorial staff of Abby Corbett and Ben Katz. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank our Abby and Ben. You're both awesome, and you make us sound less stupid. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's hard work. So Alana Cody, thank you so much for producing this show.
Every scrap of music you heard in this was composed by Kays Alatracci.
Yeah, Kays, keep banging out the great music. So
even though we're reusing all the same cues, but yes, keep banging out the great music, Kays. Check him out at musicbykays.com, and honestly, just tell him that you heard him on here and you like his work. He's a nice guy.
Hey, follow us on like the places where people follow things. We're on Instagram. We have a few followers there and some nice pictures and things. So follow us there, and follow us on the Facebook so you can like our page and all of that.
That about wraps it up, and we will see you next time at the Cinematography Podcast.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.